Welcome to the Responsible Marketing Podcast, conversations about marketing, sustainability, and how we can all help in becoming more responsible organisations. I'm Jo, a marketing strategist and consultant with a career spanning corporate, small medium business, and self-employment, incorporating marketing and commercial skills in various guises, and now flying the flag for a more sustainable and kind future for all. This time I'm joined by Steve Messam, an incredible and humble artist creating temporary art installations around the world that bring together culture, landscape and narrative. Steve and I discussed the enjoyment of provoking discussion, the conundrum of corporate memory in the growth and success of sustainability and responsibility, the old adage of failure is learning, and Steve gives us a brilliant pub quiz fact. Let's dive straight in. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast. I'm delighted to have Steve with me today. Hi Steve.
Hi there, Jo.
I don't know how to introduce you, to be honest, because you're so different from anyone else I've ever met. So I'm going to let you do your own intro. Could you tell everyone who's watching and listening kind of what you do, what you're known as?
Well, I'm just an artist. I mean, this is it.
You can't say just an artist.
Well, but yeah. But I mean, artist is a big term, and it's what but that's what I am. People say, "What kind of artist are you?" No, I'm an artist.
Okay, but you do a particular kind of art, or creative output.
Yeah, I mean, I make large things in outdoor locations. That's kind of what I do. Yeah,
3D. Kind of installations, I suppose,
yes.
Is the modern word, isn't it?
Yes, they're mostly temporary. Yeah, it's mostly temporary work.
And when you say temporary, how long do they last? Are temporary as in a couple of days or a few months?
I mean, sometimes it's hours.
Hours?
Yep.
Oh, really?
And then sometimes it's months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that. So what's the shortest one that you've ever done?
Oh, I mean, there's pieces here which have been up for minutes.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but then if they're captured photographically, then that's kind of.
Then they're forever.
Then that's the thing. So
yeah.
They don't have to necessarily be in for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's always a challenge for people to understand that things don't have to be there forever.
Yeah, if you can capture it.
Yeah.
And your background's photography as well, right?
Yes.
So you did some previous photography for press and for magazines.
Yeah.
Sustainable tourism.
That was a while back, yes.
Yeah, it's quite, I know, I have dredged some information, I have, sorry.
That's kind of like 15 years ago or something.
All good stuff. So is that kind of where did your background, because obviously your installations all have a message and tend to be to do with sustainability and culture and the environment that you install them in.
Yes.
So what's kind of like made you create that thread of that all, to bring all that together? What started that thought process for you?
Oh, gosh. I don't know is the answer.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know when things started because you just fall into things and that's kind of the nature of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but I guess, I mean, the work is about place. It's kind of understanding place. It's really kind of understanding what the place is, how it works, where it's come from. And then the works that I make are temporary, and then the idea being that they become part of the ongoing narrative of that place. So in a kind of a once upon a time, this thing happened, and that becomes part of the story of place as well.
Yeah.
Part of one of many stories that make up places.
Yeah,
to understand that places are made of stories. So it's about stories and narratives.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did obviously have a look at some of the photography from the works that you've done. I've never seen one in real life, so I'm desperate now to see one in real life. So you need to kind of tell us when they're coming up, maybe in the Northeast or somewhere more local in the UK. Oh, well, that's good. Yeah. But I think one of my favourites has to be the one you did in Bradford, because I'm a Yorkshire girl, although I'm not from Bradford, but I am from Yorkshire. And that was the tower, the stone tower, well, say stone tower in inverted commas, but it actually had almost like a wrapping of sheep yarn. Was that right?
Yeah, it's raw fleece.
Yeah.
It's raw fleece off the breed of sheep that are bred on that landscape.
Okay, and so what was the story? What was your narrative? What was it? What was the message of that installation particularly?
I mean, there's lots. It's hard to kind of boil it down to one thing because then then
I'm asking you difficult questions.
No, because then I'd be a writer if I could just succinctly put it. And the whole idea of making art is to kind of say, actually, things are complex.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'm going to do this, and then you can unpick it at whatever level you want. And at one level, you can just go, "Isn't this great? It's a tower that's made of fleece."
Yeah.
Or isn't this great because it's a stonking great big tower on the top of a fell?
Yeah, because it was huge, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's still there. It's it's just under 12 meters tall.
Yeah.
So it is huge, the highest thing around. For
Okay.
miles, you can see for miles, and there's nothing else higher than it there. So it really is that kind of landmark thing,
Yeah.
which is part of what I wanted to do, which is about making that connection with landscape. So it's about landscape, but it's also about unpicking what that landscape is. And for me, some of those stories, and there are so many stories in every landscape,
Yeah.
but some of those stories are about the relationship between what is perceived to be a wild upland
Yeah.
and the city of Bradford, because it's
Yes.
for their city of culture. And things like how the city is the product of its rural hinterland. So the city was literally built from the stone that's quarried out of that land. That landscape isn't wild where it is, it's a former quarry.
Yes.
So it's actually all man-made. So it's got this kind of history as well.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
and then the rest of the landscape is shaped by sheep, and
Yeah.
sheep producing the fleece, which started that whole wool industry that Bradford is built on. So
Yeah.
it's all part of that story, that connection between the wilderness, wild uplands,
Yeah, it's
and
really clever.
and city, and how it's joined together. But also I have this thing about relationship between sheep and landscape, because
Okay.
in Britain we have over 100 breeds of sheep. In Australia there's like 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yes,
Oh, I didn't know
merino
that.
and
Oh,
something
okay.
else.
Well,
Almost
they have
every
like gazillions amounts of sheep in
they
Australia.
have
to fill the land.
gazillions of sheep, and they're all merino.
Okay.
Whereas in the
Wow.
UK we have more sheep breeds than anywhere else in the world, and each breed of sheep is bred mostly for where it lives, about the
Okay.
characteristics of the landscape, because our landscapes are so varied.
Yes.
But it's part of how we've done sheep rearing sheep and
Yeah,
farming sheep in
sheep
this country.
industry, yeah.
So each landscape has its associate sheep, and that sheep is bred for partly for the conditions of that landscape, and partly for the conditions of where that what the product is from that sheep as well.
Yeah.
So that landscape of the Southern Pennines is different to here,
Yes,
because you've
completely.
got a different breed of sheep.
Yeah.
So you
I have
have
to just say we're in County Durham, by the way, if anyone's interested where we are. Yeah, but it is really different. And I feel now, we were talking before, weren't we, about creative outputs and things like that, and I said I'm a writer. And I feel like I need to go and look at the tower and write about it now, because honestly, you've fed me so much. Like in my head, I have seen photos of it, obviously, but I want to go and see exactly where it is and what the landscape, because it sounds like it's like almost barren landscape round it.
Yes.
With this amazing piece that brings, like you say, industry together, but also culture and animals and nature, and so many facets to it. It's incredible.
And architecture, and then just
Yeah.
looking at the fleece. It's raw fleece straight off the sheep. The fleece has come from 80% of that fleece has come from a farm that you can see from the site. So it's
Yeah.
really, really local. We've tracked it back through British Wool to find those exact sheep,
Amazing.
so that it's really, really local. And then you see all that. You think sheep are kind of white, but when you're up close with the fleece, you see all the colours,
Yeah.
the flecks of colours, and then the markings that have been sprayed on, and the meaning behind
Wow.
all these markings. And you go, there's so many stories just in that fleece alone.
Yeah.
But it's raw fleece, so that the rain runs straight off it. It doesn't get wet, and it's oily, so you smell the sheep
I'm
as
going to
well.
say it must be fairly smelly.
It's not. I mean, that particular sheep is not.
Okay.
It's actually not. They're not as smelly as Swaledale, for instance.
Okay.
Swaledale are a lot.
Yeah.
The grease that's in Swaledale is a lot smellier.
Heavier.
So yeah, it's a much heavier scent. So it's actually a lighter scent sheep, which surprised me.
Yeah. So
But you get all that as well.
You learn quite a lot, I guess, when you're doing your research then, because I presume you research the areas that you're going to install. You must be a mind of information, so you must know so much about the heritage and the culture of wherever your installation is going to go. Is that what you spend your time doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's a lot of that also, because for me, I mean, all artists work differently, but for me, it's about really understanding that place. And then I think about the people that are going to see it. And when you've got a local audience, and that local audience there is predominantly farming communities, you've really got to understand it, and understand it from their perspective. So when they see it, you want to understand what they're getting from it.
Yeah.
And if you can show that you've respected that, and there's an element of that, they're going to get, a farming community is going to get something different out of that artwork than somebody that's come up from London, because
Yeah,
they'll never get the same reference points.
No, of course.
And there's something in it for lots of different people.
Yeah.
And it's understanding that, and I really enjoy that. So the longer I spend on an artwork, the better. Something like that, it's taken a year to put together.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, but it shows.
And well, absolutely. Yeah. And how do you gauge the feedback then? Is that a case of once you've installed it, you kind of walk away and wait for feedback, maybe from whatever party or organisation you've been working with for the installation, or do you hang around and wait for people to come and see it and say, "Oh, Steve, I like this," or "I don't like this bit," or whatever? Or how do you gauge the kind of reception of those of the artworks you put in?
It's different in every project is different. So there is no fixed model for anything. I mean, I do like revisiting artworks. I do like, because I'm making them for myself.
Okay.
Yeah. At the end of the day, as an art, I'm making things that I like. Yeah. I'm making something because I really like it.
Good.
So I go back and enjoy it because that's what I like to do. And I like to go where people don't. It's quite nice, but people don't know who don't know me. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. And then you can just gauge people's reactions. Yeah. And I just love watching people enjoying being there or encountering it. And if they don't like it, it's fine as well. Because that's the whole point.
Discussion, doesn't it? So that's what you want, isn't it?
That's the whole point. If people don't like it when it's in the public domain, they're allowed not to like it and express it when they're there, because they can say to somebody, "I don't like that," but that other person might say, "But I do."
Yeah.
And you can disagree.
Yeah.
But you can then still walk away as friends.
But it's conversation, isn't it?
Exactly. It's understanding that it's not like this polarized thing that you get online. It's a real life interaction where you're allowed to disagree with somebody and it's fine.
Yeah. Yes.
It's
quite unusual sometimes these days.
I think it's a healthy thing to do.
Absolutely.
To realise that actually not everybody likes the same thing.
No.
And that's fine.
And to let other people like something different or not like something, that's
part of being human. It is.
Yeah,
it is.
It is.
So I do like going there, engaging like a public reaction. I get lots of reaction through social media, so I do keep an eye on social media and see people that share pictures, because it's always nice. I get people that comment to me back about what it means to them when they found it. That's always lovely when somebody has their own connection and their own story and they share that.
Yeah, I can imagine
that's really lovely, because I have no idea when I'm making that.
Yeah.
And then for somebody to come along and have that connection.
And then to be able to tell you as well, that's quite incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's why I don't really explain everything about the artworks as well, because I don't want to tell people what they should be thinking.
No, I suppose it's like music, isn't it? Like, if you write lyrics or you write a poem, like I write a poem, I don't always want to tell the meaning of it.
No.
Like why I wrote it. I want people to think, why would I write it, or what's their interpretation of it?
Yeah,
so it's
exactly. And then
it must be quite nice to go and sneak in, like you say, when no one knows you, and just sit and listen to what people are saying about it. That must be quite amazing.
Oh, it's lovely, and it's lovely having conversations with people, and they have no idea. And it's great. And I never, occasionally I will say, but I'll never go up and go, "Oh, this is mine. What do you think?" That would.
No, I don't know.
That's not it. I mean, we get into a conversation, and sometimes I will let on, but but that's not what it's about. It's not about a recognition for me.
No,
as
you
an
don't
artist.
Sound like a glory chaser, really.
No, I like to know what people think of the artwork, because it's all about
and what it evokes.
And what it evokes and how and how it does it. And if people really hate it, that's kind of interesting too.
Absolutely.
In real life, not online.
Yes, please, in real life.
IRL,
absolutely. So you're described as an environmental artist.
Yes.
That's kind of one of the tags I've seen associated with you. So what does that actually mean? And I guess where's your real interest in sustainability and responsibility come from? Why are you in this particular quite niche area?
Okay, so I think there's some confusion about what the title of an environmental artist is.
Good.
So an environmental artist, an artist works with its environment.
Okay.
Okay, this is not about green issues.
Okay.
It's a word.
Yeah.
Environmental means about where you are. So the pieces that I do are about the places that they sit in, and my pieces are all site specific, so they're very much about where they are, but actually their wider environment, but where they sit, is part of what makes the artwork. And sometimes that's about the journeys that people make to get there, and the fact that things like the tower and the paper bridge and things, you cannot get out of your car and see them. There's a journey. There is an investment that you have to put in order to kind of, experience them as well.
Yeah.
And that's part of that artwork. So that's what makes them environment.
Okay.
It's about the wider environment.
Yeah. Okay,
so as
that
an
makes
environmental
sense.
artist, it's not saying I'm a green artist. Because that is
Okay.
not what that term in that context is
That's
about.
okay,
When
yeah,
I describe
understand that.
myself as an environment,
Yeah.
I'm not an otherwise I'd say I'm an environmentally friendly artist, or this is
petitioning
because it's
for
a different phrase. So that's not
Yeah.
what that phrase means in terms of.
That's good to know actually,
Yeah.
because there, it's a very wide area, as in sustainability, responsibility, environment, very, very wide brief
Yeah.
in one word. So that's really good to know. But some of your installations have used kind of resources that you would count as maybe more sustainable or environmentally friendly. So your paper bridge, for example.
Yes.
So
well, all the artworks that I do
okay.
are all, because they're temporary.
Yes.
Part of the reason that well, not everything is temporary, but most of the things that
Yeah.
are temporary. The reason that they're temporary is because I have this thing about there being enough stuff in the world. So I think, if you make things that are temporary
Yeah.
and then are reused, recycled afterwards, then
Perfect.
you're not just making stuff for the sake of making stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I have a problem sometimes with art, just making stuff.
Well, I've said this on a few of my podcasts now. I think I have to hold my hands up because it's my industry that started all of that. So marketing has been probably one of the worst kind of like pushers of make stuff, use it, throw it away, rebuy, whatever. So, there's a handful of us trying to change that, in our industry, but also with consumers or appreciators of art or whatever it might be, to kind of like understand that actually you can enjoy things just as much by not necessarily having as much of stuff, but really valuing what you do have and making it worthwhile or making it last longer or whatever that might be. So whether it's artwork or whether it's, I don't know, food you eat or whatever, it's a case of like really understand the story behind it and then what happens to it before and after and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's amazing that you've used kind of, I'm going to use sustainable resources, again, a wide word, but things like paper for the paper bridge and some of the materials I know you've used across, I can't think what it was called now, the one you did across the moors, I think it was it flags? Or
Yep.
Yeah, so that was all materials. So what happens to that stuff afterwards? Like, do you bring it back to your workshop and store it like a like a womble?
Well, you can see
we're here now.
My studio is tiny, so this is another reason for like having everything recycled. Otherwise, it would fill up. You
wouldn't be able to get in here.
You wouldn't be able to get in. So what's nice is to do, and these things happen with the bigger installation. So the bigger the installation, and the more time you have, and then you work that through. So it's all part of the process of creating the artwork, is creating the artwork out of stuff that has a recycle reuse path. So that's all kind of built in. I don't kind of design something and go, okay, what can I use? Okay. It's actually the whole, that's all done together.
From start.
It's all done together. Yeah. So like, for instance, the tower, for instance, that has been designed right from the ground up, knowing from day one, we know where every nut and bolt and everything of it goes afterwards.
Right.
So that when it's gone, and it's gone off of the site, and it's a protected landscape, so there's there's no foundations, there's no digging into the ground. Behind, so literally when it comes off, there is there's no lasting damage on that site.
Wow.
You would just get some indent marks where it's been, and that regrows. So within a year, there's not a site. There's not a trace left.
That's amazing.
All the scaffolding that's on the inside, that's being used all over the place and all over the world, or wherever it gets used. Yeah. So that's eternally reused. Yeah. The meshing that holds the fleece on, that's a steel mesh, and the steel is eternally recyclable. Yeah. All the wood panels that are on the outside, they're going to be used as part of a restoration of a listed building in Alston as a former mill building, and that's coming off the at-risk Register for English Heritage.
Oh, amazing.
So all that stuff is being reused to,
Yeah, that's incredible.
you know, and
It's
it's
stories
worth.
in itself, isn't it?
Exactly,
Gosh.
and then all the fleece
Okay.
goes back to environmental restoration purposes as well.
Yeah.
So we don't have to worry about the quality of that wool in terms of making garments. So it's being used for its other properties as fleece as well.
That's
so
amazing.
everything has a reuse.
So considerate. See, I can't imagine how much. I just can't get my head around how much work goes into that. Like when you start thinking about it, and also some of the structures that you build. So the tower, for example, just outside Bradford. So made of quarry stone. So I kind of understand that. You know, even I, small brain, you know, can understand how that works. But the paper bridge.
Yes.
I mean, I think you're a bit of a magician. You know, there's something weird going on there. Like, how do you get bits of paper to hang, I don't know, stand together, whatever it is? How do you make that happen? Have you got engineering background maybe, or
no?
But how do you find out that things like that can happen?
Well, this is you.
Or can work and last as long as you need it to. Actually, that's more important.
That's all. I had a really good client with that who at a paper mill who wanted to kind of work with me and go, what can we do with paper? And I said, wouldn't it be great if we could build something structural? I don't know, like a bridge or something. And then the idea sits in there, and they supported that. All the research that went into that, and we go, okay, how can we make a bridge? Can we make a bridge? How do we do it?
Yeah.
How is that possible? What happens if you make, because if you go on Google and you go, how do you make a bridge out of paper that you can walk over? Google goes, I don't know. Yeah,
exactly. We'll try this. Well, no, I don't want to try it because, if someone falls down, that's that, isn't it?
Yeah. So, so then that I mean, that was about 5 years on and off, kind of just like plodding away with that.
That's a long time.
Kind of working out how to do it and working out the maths. And that was all done on paper. That wasn't even done on a computer. So that was all the maths were all the angles and everything else was all done on paper to work out the different sheet sizes and what happens. And then we build lots of models and then see what happens and build them and leave them outside for a few months to see how the paper reacts, and then looking at the environmental reactions of paper and dye and stuff in the environment, and making sure that everything is as safe as you can do it.
God, so it's so 5 years. Is that your average kind of time that you'd use for a project?
No, that was
a particularly long one. Or?
That was a long one. Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger, the longer you spend on a project, then I think the more robust it is anyway as an artwork, because you're just investing time and effort into it. So the bigger projects do take upwards of a year.
Yeah.
To really get to where they should be.
And how do you approach a project that you think might, so like the paper bridge where it's taken 5 years? How do you ever lose focus and think, I'm going to sack this off, I can't be, it's going to take too long? Are you just completely invested and that's what you're conconcentrating on and doing? Or are you doing other things at the same time?
No, that's not working on it for 5 years solid.
Okay. Right. So
there's other stuff going on.
Yeah, I was going to say that's really.
But it's all that time that spends. So much of my time, so much of making any artwork is the time thinking it through.
Yeah, well, of course.
And
in
so
all
the
creative industries, right? Yeah.
So it is about that thinking time, and then you can be doing other things, but that thinking time is so crucial. People go, "What do you do? Are you working? And you're off here and there." And but I'm actually this is me working on it because it's actually putting time into that project, and you're thinking it through, and you're seeing other things, and it all comes into the mix and understanding it.
It's a funny thing, the human brain, like that, isn't it? We get told. I had another guest, Barry, who was on my podcast not so long since, and we were talking about education and how obviously the education sector, as in how education is delivered to children these days, and maybe it's not set for what real life is when you leave school. And, I can remember being told, can you stop looking out the window? And I think I must have been daydreaming and thinking about stuff. But, it's one of those things, isn't it? Especially when, again, the creative industry, you're thinking, sometimes people assume you're kind of just sat doing nothing for so long. But it's not that. It's that it's all happening in here as opposed to kind of on paper or making or whatever, isn't it? It's
absolutely.
It's your
so
intuition
much
and your imagination.
Is everything kind of going to work and seeing what comes out? Because every project, absolutely every project starts with nothing. I always start every
Blank
project
sheet.
complete blank sheet. I go on a site visit, whatever. I go with no preconceived ideas about what I want to do. It all starts with absolutely nothing, and I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
And then you work it up from there.
All possibilities are there, aren't they?
Exactly.
But no bias or anything.
Exactly.
And have you found yourself maybe picking a site that you visited a country or something, you've seen something, and think, actually I could really do something here, it'd be amazing, or is it generally by invitation you get asked to go and enhance maybe a city or a piece of landscape with a piece of art?
That depends. It's a bit of a mix from project to project. Yeah. And then, commercial projects is what pays the bill, and so they come to you with a very, very tight kind of brief.
Okay.
They tend to have the least amount of leeway in them.
Yeah. Okay.
But they come with the money.
Well, exactly, and we all need it, right? So
yeah. And then there's projects.
And it's still pleasurable to do, I would guess.
Well, of course it is. Yeah. Well, I still make sure that I get something interesting out of it. Otherwise,
totally.
What's the point in doing it?
Quite. Yeah.
And then there's the project. The other end of it is the projects which I just do myself with no clients, things that I just want to make.
And what's been your most favourite one of those that you've done? What's the one that really you think, oh, this was brilliant, I would love doing this for your own individual projects?
I don't get to do very many of them, so there's not many to choose from.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes it easy then.
I mean, there is one, and I've got some stuff up there, and I can't tell anybody about it.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'll tell you off camera.
Space, then.
No,
okay.
no, because it happened a few years ago, but I can't tell anybody it was me.
Okay. Well, I won't tell them either. We're going to scrap that bit.
And that was so much fun. It's so much fun, and it just went viral, and it was crazy, and I just can't tell anybody it was me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're not Banksy, are you?
No, I'm not Banksy. But...
Okay, you heard it here first. Steve's not Banksy.
But,
so I saw when I was researching, I think it's on your website or on certainly a website connected to yours. It was some footage of some children. I think over in Japan, maybe was it? There was an installation, and it was like almost underneath a bridge. It's quite spiky.
Oh yes, yeah.
Something a bit like this.
Yes,
a bit like that.
Oh, I haven't got that one up there. Yeah, okay, that's relatively recent. Yeah.
Yeah. So
in Chengdu, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me about that, because that was really unusual, and you'll have to go and look on Steve's website to go and have a look if you want to see what it's like, because it really is just striking, which obviously starts conversation anyway. But what was the premise behind that? What was the message, I guess? What was it trying to promote? Or was it just literally a talking point to bring? Because there were kids there, all ages, all walks of life, tourists, nationals that live there, whatever, So is it just purely for conversation?
Yeah, I mean that was an interesting one, because that was there really wasn't much time on that one. It was really, really short amount of time. I didn't even get to do a site visit on it.
Oh my goodness!
But
really?
the sites were predetermined.
Okay.
There were two bridges, so actually it was on two sites, 2 footbridges, and those were the sites. What can you do with these bridges?
And that was it. That was the brief. What can you do?
Yeah.
And
No, it wasn't what can you do. It's do something.
Oh, do something. Yes, okay. Do something with this.
Yeah. No. What can you do? Just do it.
Okay. Well, that's even more amazing, really.
It was great.
And it was inflatable, is that right?
Yeah, I mean there was a brief, because it was part of an exhibition as well. So there was an overall kind of curatorial kind of some ideas around it, which were tricky, because they were very Chinese in terms of culturally what those ideas were, understanding about the city and its relationship with flowers and colours, and stuff that was really difficult for me to understand, because some of it was about plays on words as well, which, with a language that you really need to understand a language well to understand plays on words as well.
Absolutely,
So this stuff was that was quite tricky for me to kind of get my head around. But then, it was about making pieces, and I was interested in that space and doing. I like playing with bridges, as you can see. There's a number of bridges that I work.
Bridges is a thing.
Yeah, and bridges are a thing. They're functional things. You walk over them and you walk underneath them. The bridges are about being over and under. So I wanted to do something which was about an experience over the top, but also an experience underneath. So it was about walking over a bridge and walking under a bridge, walking through these forms. But then it was scale and colour, and there was a lot going on, but they were massive.
They were huge. They are, well, yes, they were absolutely huge. How long were they up for then?
So they were up for 5 months.
Wow, that's pretty impressive as well.
That was a stretch.
Okay.
Textiles don't like being outdoors.
No. And do they have to keep being inflated?
So it's constantly inflated.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's continuing inflated. So they have these fans in. I mean, the fans draw less power than a light bulb. They're really low powered.
Yeah.
But they are just fabric and air. That's what's nice about the inflatables. It's just fabric and air.
Yeah. I think you might start a little trend for bridge appreciation on things like that, because it does make you have to stand and look at a bridge and think, oh my goodness, that's quite different.
Yeah, but it was also understanding kind of the scale of them as well, and it was a piece that you could go right up to and walk through as well.
Yes, yeah.
Originally, they told me that there was a little bus that drove around the site as well, and this bus had to go through the middle, so they were designed to take this bus. When I got there, actually, the bus doesn't go under those bridges because it can't, because there are other things around them. So I think there was a bit of a misunderstanding. I was so looking forward to seeing this guy going on this bus and driving through an artwork.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so
maybe another time. Maybe I'll have to put a request in next time you're asked to do something.
There's some other things in the pipeline for that. So
that's good. Can I take you back to your sustainable tourism days? I know it's quite a few years. You said about 15 years ago or so. What changes? I mean, I suppose what was the attitude? What were the attitudes, I should say, about sustainability and responsibility then, and how have you seen that change now, just from either a personal perspective or commercial perspective?
There's a story about why I ended up doing that. Is that I was running an arts festival in Cumbria, which was site-specific art all over Cumbria, outside of gallery spaces, and that was seen as a model of responsible and sustainable tourism, because that was about engaging communities, making places interesting to visit, having experiences and temporary experiences that didn't have a lasting effect. And it's like, how can art add to the value of a place? And there were some other really interesting projects that were happening in Europe as well at the time, in rural areas. It was looking at what you can do for an offer, and how can art and design work as part of that offer for creating sustainable tourism. So this is not about making tourist attractions. This is about people that went somewhere because they had an interest in it, and they were interested in the deeper aspects of place, rather than mass tourism ideas of place. So they would more likely to use local food providers, local accommodation providers, all that stuff. So that was kind of what it was about. These kind of events, and how those events can actually create sustainable tourism, or add to this offer for a model for sustainable tourism. And that was really interesting. There was a wonderful festival that I hooked up with in Sweden, and it was the Secret and it's a gorgeous idea, is that they would have this festival, a couple of nights of live music, but they would happen in the most amazing location. Okay. But you didn't know where. Oh, mystery tour. Excellent. So you book onto it because you know that what you're going to get is an experience that you'll never get anywhere else. Okay. So you book onto it. But then what the organisers do is they find this location, and they're finding local musicians as well. Yeah. The whole community does all the catering. Oh my goodness. So the community become part of what people are engaging when they get there. Yeah. So they are welcoming people to their area. It's a truly immersive experience, isn't it? It is. And so all that money goes into those communities. Yes. And what people get out of it is that sense of communities, that sense of place. Yeah. And that is what sustainable tourism, one good model of sustainable tourism. And that's art kind of creating that model.
Absolutely.
And that was kind of really, really interesting. So we did a number of, through this project, through the Design of the Times design biennial in the Northeast in 2007, was one of the strands was looking at models of sustainable tourism, and it was great. We did some experimental stuff, which was, as an artist, it shook things up a bit and went, we're going to be experimental and we're going to find out, because they might not work, but
isn't that one of the most amazing test spaces to be able to use?
But you've got to take risks, and this was
totally.
also what artists do. What the artists can bring to it is artists are used to taking risks.
Yeah.
Architects don't do risks.
No.
Because
they do structure.
They do structure,
Yes.
And a lot of design industries, they don't do risk taking. A lot of big businesses don't do risk.
No.
But what artists do is, one way we did the paper bridge, working with the paper manufacturer. They loved it because they were and they thought it was, brave of them to be engaging with an artist who was taking risks. We're going to build this bridge out of paper, and it's like, well, you can, we're not.
Yeah, exactly. Good luck with that one.
And then they went, if you didn't take that risk, you wouldn't have got this outcome at the end of it. So it was all about risk taking, and that comes down to the sustainable tourism as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all about
and they're
risk.
still talking about sustainable tourism now. So I know that funding within County Durham, for example, there's lots of kind of funding and what I would say, kind of not events necessarily, but recognition is what I'm looking for. Recognition of businesses that are creating and enhancing tourism to drive people to the area, so we'll bring people into the area and keep them here and give them opportunities to experience and all that kind of stuff. So again, it's a reputation piece, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
So has that changed? Has it changed dramatically, do you think? Has it maybe drifted since you maybe did that first kind of stab that you were involved in? Has it drifted a bit and people have thought, actually, tourism isn't that great, and now it's come back again as a thing? Or do you think it's always been there in the background and maybe there's just more emphasis now because we know business is tough and, the business landscape all over is tough. So actually the more we can help each other in business is going to be better for all of us, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I'm always an optimist, but sometimes it's like the reality is
doesn't help, does it?
No, I think there is the biggest problem comes with this lack of corporate memory.
Okay.
Is that people kind of do these things and they go, that's great. But then the nature of big business is that people move on, and there's no memory of it, and so it all gets forgotten. Way of putting it.
Yeah, okay.
And then it has to be reinvented.
Yeah.
And actually,
so there's transfer of knowledge type of thing.
Yeah. So so it's people keep talking about sustainable tourism, but it never really takes off.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because it relies on people like me and all those kind of risk takers and people pushing the boundaries and being experimental, thinking outside of the box, who are not in not the permanent parts of the business as well. And then they go, oh, that's great. And then sometimes it's either that memory gets lost or they move on and never really understand the long-term vision. And I think sustainable tourism, anything sustainable, has to think long-term, because that's the whole point. Exactly. And I think with a lot of businesses that there isn't the real long-term vision in those soft outcomes. You have long-term vision in terms of what your pound, shillings and pence, but in those soft outcomes about what are we going to do about encouraging more people to come here, public transport, or coming here to spend money in the local shops and in the local cafes, and that bigger picture. They'll do a small project, but then they don't really capitalise on it and understand when they've done a project, it's project based, and they've done an example, and they don't go, oh, that's worked. Can we roll that out?
Yeah, exactly. And do you think that's because it doesn't necessarily all come down to money, as in physical income? Sometimes, when I talk about brand reputation and brand presence, for example, it's quite intangible. You can't really put your finger on, unless you've got some really good data, some market research. It's really hard to say, has that improved my brand presence or brand reputation or not? But you should know that the activities you're doing, whether they're going to enhance or not enhance. But again, like you say, it's a bit of a soft gain, actually, and there's no real tangible evidence to necessarily prove that all the time. So therefore people think, oh, actually, I don't know if that worked or not, so I'm not going to bother doing that anymore. But this worked, as in I'm going to go back into my little bubble and work on this because I know it delivers money. But actually,
Yes.
in the long, like you say, in the long game, building that brand reputation and drawing people in by word of mouth or whatever that might be, or greater tourist projects or whatever, then actually that, like you say, long-term gain will prove itself eventually. But it's not necessarily having the confidence or the risk taking or the bravery, if that's the context, to extend into that, to then want to actually capture that gain towards, like I say, in the long game.
Yeah. I think a lot of the sustainable tourism initiatives seem to be coming through from kind of like funded projects.
Yeah.
And because they're funded projects, then actually the financial risk is actually not on the people delivering it. Yeah. And so they deliver it and they go, that's great, but then they haven't really benefited themselves or risked their own money with it. And so that necessarily the understanding about what the wider implications can be are not necessarily always understood. And I think that's a big fall down, and I see it with a lot of projects that I've done. Not all of them, but some of them you just go, this is you did something great and you've really enjoyed it and you had so many positive outcomes. How are you going to build on that? And they haven't built on that. Went, we did that.
Well, we did that. It was a one-off. It was a project.
Yeah, it was a one-off. Yeah. Yeah.
But why?
And they go, but we don't do that. And
it's not our thing.
Yeah.
You just have.
It's exactly.
You've just done it.
Exactly.
And I think, works.
Yes, I know. And they go,
it's tough,
so
right?
It is, and I think that there's a lot of businesses that don't get that, and particularly organisations, public funded organisations don't necessarily understand particularly what art and design, good art and design can actually do, what it really does.
Yeah, let your designers and your creatives loose a little bit and let them do something a bit crazy. Because I mean, even like you say, even if it doesn't work, it's still talking points. And I think we've got to this place now, certainly within kind of commercial business and third sector and everything, where if something fails, everyone's been like, oh my goodness, that didn't work, oh it's awful, blah blah, and whose head's going to be on the line? And actually that's still part of business.
Of course it is.
It's still learning, and yes, okay, it might cost some money, but then you've got to invest in your business to grow your business or to keep it sustainable for however long. So you're going to have to make those failings. Everyone's going to fail at something. Every business is going to fail at something.
Well, you have to. I mean, it was always in my mind that, as an artist, you're always taking risks.
Yeah, exactly.
And if everything, if every project that I did was a success, that's boring. Because I'm clearly not pushing enough. So I know, and it's quite, I mean, it's hard at the time when something kind of cracks.
It's never enjoyable, is it?
No, but projects, I mean, they do go wrong, when they muck up, if they're big, they can go wrong big time. But that's, from part of me has to remind myself that actually that's a good thing, because it shows that I'm still pushing
the boundaries.
I'm not playing it safe, because if
or,
you're playing it safe, it's not interesting.
No, exactly. I really love that approach, actually. Or if it does break, then maybe let's do it slightly differently. Then let's try this way, and hopefully it won't. That won't have the same outcome, and that'll work this time. So it's, like I say, it's all learning, isn't it?
It is learning, and you've got to learn from. You have to learn from the bad things as well as the good things. But you have to learn from the good things too.
Well, absolutely. Yeah.
Some people don't do that either.
So, just obviously, you've been in business quite some time for yourself.
Yeah.
How many years now?
Oh gosh.
Oh, is that state secret?
No. I mean, I get the last time that I had a 9-to-5 salary was 93.
Oh, that's quite some years ago. Was it a paper round, I'm guessing? It must have been
no, but it wasn't much beyond that. Yeah.
So you've been in business for quite a long time. In your opinion, what do you think are the biggest challenges for kind of small, medium businesses now, just either having organisational longevity or just playing the business landscape as it stands at the moment? You've had quite a lot of experience in business. You'll have seen some different times in that time. Admittedly, you're in a creative industry, which definitely has a roller coaster time.
Yes.
So, what do you think the challenges are right now for businesses?
I get lots of challenges.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, top 3. Top 3 out of a million.
No, but I think sustainability it is a growing thing.
Yeah.
And it is something that is probably the one feature that I am thinking about more.
Okay.
And thinking deeper and making more changes to my practice about. So I think that's influencing how I'm working.
That's
for
interesting.
lots of reasons. Because we're only here once,
Yeah.
but also it's about what does happen to everything, and it's about supporting businesses that are making those products.
Yeah.
And it just makes you stop and think about every action that you do. So things like this part of Europe stuff. I won't grab a flight to it. It's like it is things like taking train journeys. Yeah. I recently did some stuff in Aberdeen, and the client was going, "Well, you can fly from Teesside to Aberdeen, but I'll get the train."
Yeah.
And actually, it's quite nice to take the train,
It's
but
lovely.
also it's like, no, we shouldn't be taking 1 hour flights.
Yeah.
If there's a direct train service, and
Yeah.
there's loads of direct train services from Darlington to lots of places.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like these are the kind of things we're doing. I've been driving an electric car for 4 years now. And I'm doing 30,000 miles a year. And people are going, well, you can't. Electric cars are no good if you're doing long distances, and it doesn't.
If you manage it, I guess, then you prep yourself for what you need to do.
Yeah, and going to China, going to Shanghai, and seeing the city, one of the biggest cities in the world, that have banned banned petrol vehicles.
Yeah.
Everything is done on your phone. It's a cashless society. All these things that people are saying, but we can't do it. It's too difficult to do.
Yeah.
And then there is one of the biggest cities in the world have just done it. And everybody just gets on and does it.
Yeah.
And you go, this is a city that used to never see the sky because of the pollution, hard to cross the road, it was noisy, and it's now clean air, it feels calmer, it's quieter, and the whole city just functions so much
Somebody
better.
else actually at an event I was
It's
at was
amazing.
talking about Shanghai, and they were saying they were from Shanghai, and they said what an amazing difference. Even in, I think they hadn't been back for maybe 3 or 4 years, and they said even that in itself has changed again. The city's changed again. It's incredible.
It's a glimpse of the future, and you go,
Yeah.
actually.
I mean, I have to play devil's advocate on that from a responsibility point of view, or carbon emissions, because obviously if you're all data led and everything else, there's still that kind of emissions side to that, and that's the more legislative, maybe boring side to it. So there is a bit of a downer for me, but like you say, if it brings a cleaner city that everyone's actually thriving in, then that also counts, because that's your people factor and the culture that you live in, and how people respect each other and respect the environment. And like you say, we're only here once.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want to respect the fact that we've actually got a choice or an option, or an opportunity to be on this planet? It's not everyone gets the choice. Not everyone makes the egg. Anyway, I'll leave that bit there. But
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing, isn't it? So sustainability definitely becoming more.
It is. It's something I think about, but also it also makes sense as well, kind of financially as well, when you're looking at reusing things and things like my electric car. I mean, it saves me money.
Yeah.
It's actually cheaper.
Yeah. Okay.
So
thank you if you're watching or listening, and we'll see you next time. Changes.
It's small change. It is about small changes.
Yeah.
Small changes. Microgeneration and all that kind of stuff. It's all these little things.
Yeah.
So it's about that's.
Well, I'm very pleased to hear you say that.
that.
Even though, I know that you source your materials very carefully, but I mean that's part of the kind of like the artwork that you do, or the creative output you do. So I know that obviously stone from a quarry locally to Bradford, that type of thing. That all that's always on your mind. But to hear you do that from a business point of view as well, then that's awesome, I think.
Yeah,
well
but I think this is it. It's like it doesn't cost money.
Yeah.
It
doesn't have to be, does it?
Doesn't have to. You have to do a bit of thinking.
Yeah.
And I think things are easier now than they were 5 years ago. Certainly, owning an electric car is easier now than it was 3 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. It's still catching up here. But these things, so it it's onward, but the more people that are doing it, you know, I think that just makes it easier.
Absolutely,
and,
absolutely. Steve, it's been lovely. I'm going to ask you one last question, which is
Go
a bit of an obscure one.
Yeah.
But as I said, I was a bit of a writer, and I actually think maybe I should finish with asking you, have you got a book recommendation, or whether it's an audio book or something for people that could perhaps go and either look for your artwork in, or something to do with how you create or your process, or something that's given you inspiration?
Gosh.
I know it's a real... Okay.
But in terms of what inspires me in terms of a book, I mean, I think...
Or any artists to go and check out?
Yeah, I don't look at other artists' work.
You don't?
No,
Interesting.
no.
Okay.
I rarely go to galleries. Yeah, it doesn't really interest me.
It's so interesting.
Yeah, so that's a difficult thing. Yeah, I don't often, when I read, I don't read like non-fiction. It tends to be fiction.
Fiction. Okay.
Yeah,
well, what's your favourite fictional book?
Oh, there's a number. I mean, there's a book that spawned a whole series of artworks for a number of years. There's a personal project called The Architect of Ruins by Herbert Rosendorfer.
Okay.
Which is a fabulous book because it's about stories within stories, and it's a spiral of stories it's about people that tell stories and not quite sure what point you are within the story as it reveals itself, and they go down into a bunker, and as they come back up, then the stories resolve as they come as well. So
it's kind of one.
It's architectural within its structure as storytelling as well, but it's this kind of concept of an architect of ruins as well, which is quite interesting. So
I'm definitely going to be checking that one out.
It's a
amazing.
great book.
Steve, it's been absolutely fascinating to have you. I've just so loved our conversation. Where can people find you if they want to contact you, or your works to have a look at?
I'm always on Instagram on Rougeit, Rougeit.
Okay.
That's probably the easiest place to find me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And definitely go and check Steve's work out because it is quite incredible.
Yeah, there's quite a few pieces that are happening across the northeast later this year as well. So
exciting.
we get some closer to home ones.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'll definitely be going. Well, I'll hopefully going to Bradford soon. So, but equally, it will. Yeah, I'll keep tabs on what you're doing in the northeast.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening or watching the Responsible Marketing Podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please hit the subscribe button wherever you get your podcast from. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe there too. I also love to get reviews as they make a huge difference to others when discovering the show. So please leave a review, any comments or questions on whichever platform you prefer. And of course, feel free to share it on your socials with your friends and your colleagues. If you want to contact me directly, you can email joe@jolongconsulting.com or find me on LinkedIn under my own name, Joe Long. Until next time, thanks very much for listening and for watching.